Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and we've officially wrapped up day number 2 of the NFL Draft. A really fun day, a lot of action, a lot of trades, and for San Francisco, it was a lot of defense. It's the first time since 2000 their first 4 picks have been defensive players. Day 1, 11th overall, it was Mykel Williams, and on day 2, 3 more players added to that list. Alfred Collins, defensive tackle out of Texas, Upton Stout, cornerback out of Western Kentucky, and Nickolas Martin, linebacker out of Oklahoma State to round things out on day number 2. Going to deep dive into every single prospect. Did I like it? Did I dislike it? And why they fit the San Francisco 49ers culture. All of that coming up right here on 49ers Access. Okay, I think it goes without saying day 2 of the NFL Draft, in my opinion, is usually one of the more active days, a day where, okay, the first round's done, you got your one player usually unless you trade back up, but day 2 is where you can kind of make your roster, right? And San Francisco has had a really hard time finding good players on day 2. In previous drafts, they have hit on players like Fred Warner and Deebo Samuel, albeit those were a lot earlier in the Shanahan Lynch regime's tenure in San Francisco. In more recent years, it's been players like Ty Davis-Price and Trey Sermon and Jake Moody and Cam Latu. It's been a struggle to make things pretty simple. And San Francisco, I think, walked into today with a really good start. In the last podcast, we talked about that, the Mykel Williams pick is a good pick. It's not a home run, but it certainly is getting a few guys on base for you and hope that on day 2, you can drive them home with the home run or a couple more singles to help round out your roster, get some real starters on day 2. And I think San Francisco did that with their first pick, round 2, pick 43 overall. And I don't think this pick was shocking, especially the position they took, but the player, although wasn't perplexing, it just wasn't who I thought they'd want at pick 43. That is Alfred Collins out of Texas. And when I tell you this, I love this pick a lot. He was one of the first players I actually dove into because walking into this year's draft, I knew that San Francisco was likely going to have their eyes towards the defensive line, mainly on the interior. And Alfred Collins was one of the first players I dove into. And, as you're kind of progressing through your scouting and watching film and watching tape and listening to other talk about prospects and whatnot and kind of gauging where the board may fall, I would not be shocked if Alfred Collins didn't have a first round grade from San Francisco. I think the way this draft is, how polarizing it is, how each prospect kind of has to fit your scheme, has to fit your system. And sometimes just certain players just don't fit you as a defense or an offense or coaching staff and whatnot. And I think Alfred Collins, again, I think could have been a first round talent for San Francisco. I picked him on very early on day 2, pick 43, but I love this pick. I think it fills a big need. San Francisco really hasn't had, maybe since the Eric Armstead and DeForest Buckner and DJ Jones grouping you had in San Francisco in the early era of the Shanahan Lynch regime. Honestly, during Saleh's first tenure in San Francisco as well. So it's been a long time since San Francisco's had a big, stout run defender. And I think whether it was Darius Alexander, who was there on the board at the time, who I still may prefer, but I'm not going to balk at Alfred Collins whatsoever. One thing both those players possess that you love is girth. Who doesn't love that? Or some length. So you're getting some lengthy girth, a pretty good combination for you in many ways in life, but primarily a really good asset to have on your defensive line. You get Mykel Williams on day 1, a 34-inch armed player, 265 pounds, 6'5" edge rusher. And now on day 2, Alfred Collins, a 6'6", 332 pounds, 34 5/8 inch arms. Length, girth, what's not to like when they tell you size doesn't matter? They're lying to you, because Alfred Collins' size is one of his biggest assets, but also one of his biggest detriments. And I'll explain to you why in a second, because as a 23-year-old fifth-year senior, Alfred Collins knows how to use his body as a run defender. An 85.0 run defense grade for PFF last year. He has been able to stay healthy 64 games out of 65 the last 5 seasons. So the injury concerns of previous defensive tackles, a lot last year as well on the defensive line, shouldn't be a problem with Alfred Collins in San Francisco. He has great awareness. He batted down 6 passes last year, an underrated trait from defensive tackles. San Francisco, having shorter quarterbacks, has unfortunately run into this mainly against Chris Jones in Kansas City. And funny enough, I think it was Mel Kiper, which I like Mel a lot, but he isn't the draft pundit or scout or media personality I lean towards when talking about the NFL draft. The way he has handled himself with Shedeur Sanders has certainly, it seems like, clouded some people's judgment towards him, but I think he compared Alfred Collins to Chris Jones. So funny enough, there is some comparisons there, although I don't think they're exactly accurate, is how I'll put that. But Alfred Collins is awesome if you want that big, stout run defender. A very smart player, a very strong player, a solid anchor. Again, superb play strength. He's not going to get jostled around as a run defender against some guards and centers. He'll be able to push the pocket for you and create lanes for your linebackers to make tackles and safeties to make tackles. He's played over 100 plus snaps at nose tackle and also can play 3 tech. So there is some versatility there as a run defender. He can play early on downs. He can play on first and second downs. So at least on the first 2 picks, San Francisco had base down players, run down players for you to help get you into more manageable third downs for your defense, 3rd and longs, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 10s, hopefully in 2025. That's kind of where the good ends, which he's a very high floor player, similar to Mykel Williams, where you say, the ceiling may not be as high as a player, let's say like Darius Alexander or Derek Harmon or somebody like that, picked near that range, about 20 to 15 picks from each other. But a really good player, again, feels a massive need. San Francisco has needed a presence, a bigger bodied presence to be on the interior of their defensive line, and they have that now. I think there is upside as a pass rusher. At Texas last year, he had a 69.8 PFF pass rush grade, only 22 pressures, 1 sack, a 7.9 pass rush win rate, accompanied with 21 run stops. So again, a lot of good, but there is some maybe inconsistencies is the way to put that. There's a big issue with the pad level, especially against the pass. I do think you are going to see times where, although he's not going to get shoved around, you are going to have shorter guards get into his chest and kind of take him out of plays. The one way he does neutralize his negativities, if that's how you'd word that, is he has a really high motor, doesn't give up on plays, and is a really good red zone defender. So you're going to have a player that, kind of like how we talked about JT Tuimoloau, who, when you get into the red zone, the goal line, something just clicks in their head and you say, okay, like they are seriously not going to allow the opposing offenses to score touchdowns. And Alfred Collins certainly tries everything he possibly can to avoid being scored on defense. So a lot to like, a high motor, a good player overall. Even Matthew McConaughey got it on the action, calling it a pretty good pick. So if McConaughey says it's a good pick, it's probably a pretty good pick. But McConaughey knows his ball. Obviously, it was in We Are Marshall and goes to almost every single Texas game. So if he has some insight into how good Alfred Collins can be, I'm going to go lean towards McConaughey on this one and say it might be a good pick for San Francisco. But if you aren't a McConaughey fan, I still think San Francisco gets a really good pick here. My instant reaction was awesome. This is an awesome pick, an excellent pick for San Francisco. Again, there is some inconsistencies with the pass rush. The pad level is a problem for him. Again, when you're 6'6", 332 pounds, you don't have natural leverage, where San Francisco sometimes prefers smaller defensive tackles because you have natural leverage. Kalia Davis, DJ Jones being one of those and two of those players. And in previous years, they've kind of gone with the Kerry Hyders of the world, guys who aren't the biggest guys on the interior that can get inside guards and centers' chests and wreak some havoc. So this really is their first space eater. They tried this with Javon Kinlaw, and I have seen some comparisons to Javon Kinlaw with Alfred Collins. I think there certainly are some to be made. However, a healthier Javon Kinlaw is probably the way to put it, which I think you're seeing now with him with the Jets and now the Commanders in 2025. Again, fingers crossed he can stay healthy for them. But I think you're getting a player that overall, well, yes, has some negative thoughts, or not thoughts, but has some negative to his game. There is some upside there as a pass rusher. There's effort there. It's not like he's one of these run defenders only type players. There is some upside there. He uses his hands pretty well. He's not too wild. He's a guy who, again, just wants to give you everything he's got. And you're going to find that throughout day two, a lot of the players, if not all of the players they picked, are ones who are going to give you high effort, have a high motor, and give you everything they have, snap in, snap out. I'm not sure if he'll be able to play on third downs at the NFL level in year one, but that's why you have Saleh and you have Kosaric to hopefully coach him up, teach him up. One downfall I have seen thus far, and obviously day three hasn't happened just yet, and there's a lot of prospects they can take. Joshua Farmer, Anis Peebles from Virginia Tech, David Walker, edge rusher from Central Arkansas, that can fix this problem, but you drafted in your first two picks two base down run defending players with pass rush upside, both powerful, both pocket moving players, which is certainly valuable at the NFL level. And I'm not using this to be negative or say I don't like the pick, because I do like the pick. I think it's a good pick, but I think like Mykel Williams, you have to pair Collins with that pass rusher on the interior. And although Williams has Sam Aquanu and Yetur Gross-Matos and Nick Bosa and Robert Bill Jr., you can argue that there are already some pieces in place. On the interior with Collins, all they have is run defenders now. And San Francisco has neglected to add some pass rushers, which, again, may change on day three. Already named a few of those guys just now, the last 5 minutes or so. But I do think San Francisco, like Collins, is a really good start. If anything, it's now second and third, nobody out for San Francisco. The rally has been started, but you're hoping on the defensive line to add an edge rusher or two. Or in my case, I think I'm leaning more towards getting a pass rushing defensive tackle, because you want to pair him with Collins and hopefully have that tandem in the future. But I like the pick. It's a good pick. A lot of people on Twitter, when I was mocking Darius Alexander or I was talking about him, hey, take him on day two. He was still on the board there. I went to the Giants, who are going to have a great defensive line this year with Adobah Carter and Darius Alexander. Age was a big problem for them, 25 years old. And although Darius Alexander, to me, is a more well-rounded player, I think Alfred Collins being 23 is a big plus for you. You get him for probably, if he's good, for two of a big contract, rookie contract, and one more after that, for however long that is. You get him probably into his early 30s, which is what you want at the NFL level. So a lot to like, when I think of Alfred Collins, long arms, it's going to be hard for running backs and quarterbacks and receivers to run in between the tackles against him. Not going to get moved well. And you pair him next to Mykel Williams, you got two dudes that got 34-inch arms, 34-plus inch arms. That's a long reach, and they're going to get their hands on running backs, and running against San Francisco this year is going to be really hard, which I think is a massive need. You saw it last year against the Cardinals. Already mentioned that yesterday when they picked Mykel Williams. But you're playing the Rams, you're playing the Vikings, you're playing, if you go to the Super Bowl, you're playing the Chiefs, you're playing Philadelphia, like you're playing the Giants, you're the Commanders. Like, you have to stop the run in the NFL. And I think San Francisco realizes that. Not usually the prototypical defensive tackle they like, but I think it is a change as to what they need at the moment, which I don't know how long Robert Saleh will be in San Francisco. Maybe it's 1 year or it's a 2-year vacation. I have no idea, but um, they must really trust him. And they are giving him the keys to reshape their defense. And again, since the first time since 2000, their first 4 picks have been defensive players. And I think 2000 was Julian Peterson and Ahmed Plummer in the first 2 picks. So those are pretty good players. Peterson being, one of the best. He actually made a couple of picks tonight for San Francisco as the announcer. So that's pretty fitting for the storyline we're going with here. But I like this pick. I think it's a good pick. I think San Francisco gets a win with this pick. You could argue he wasn't the best defensive tackle on the board, but I can push back and say he may have been the best run defending defensive tackle on the board at the time. Would I pick somebody else? Maybe, but it's really hard to be not happy with the first 2 picks San Francisco made day 1 and day 2. And that leads us to their third pick of the day, or excuse me, third pick of the draft, second of the day. But first, I want to ask you to like, share, subscribe, leave the 5-star audio podcasting review. It's the only and the best way we can get more ears and eyes on to the product. And if you could, I want to offer you a special gift from me to you. That is our promo code 49ers Access, 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com. You can save yourself $20 off your first purchase. If you want to see Mykel Williams and Alfred Collins eat on San Francisco's defense in 2025, go get some tickets using that promo code. Or if you're in summertime, it's spring, there's outdoor concerts, baseball's in full swing. Who doesn't love going down to the ballpark, getting a hot dog, getting a beer, getting a little pretzy, getting a little hot fudge sundae, and why not help pay for that? Pay for parking by using that promo code again, 49ers Access at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Okay. In my opinion, San Francisco did a great job with their first 2 picks. They had to go defensive line. They addressed the defensive line early. I liked what they did. You stopped the run with some pass rush upside. It may not be what they usually do, but I think it's a good change. And if it works, they are getting away from the speed and going more towards the power, which, if you're a Star Wars fan, unlimited power sounds pretty good on a defense that can hopefully push the pocket. But this is where things kind of turn. This is where the tide turned for San Francisco. I think a lot of people, when they hear picks in the 70s, and once you get into round 3, the old Kyle Shanahan running back pick comes to mind. And again, San Francisco has not really had a lot of success in round 3. A couple years ago was Jake Moody and Jair Brown and Cam Latu, and Jake Moody may be replaced this training camp in preseason. Jair Brown's job is up for grabs as this quote-unquote free safety. And Cam Latu hasn't played a single snap in the NFL yet. So then there is Ty Davis-Price and Trey Sermon. A lot of misses have come in round 3, excuse me. And it's tough because when San Francisco takes a linebacker at pick 75, a linebacker out of Oklahoma State, Nickolas Martin, is it the player I would have taken at that time? No. This linebacker class isn't great. This linebacker class kind of has 2 alphas, Carson Schlesinger and Jihad Campbell. And even then, that kind of is you can certainly sway yourself on each of those guys in different directions, depending on the defense you're on and what you're looking for out of that player. But outside of that, a lot of linebackers have not been taken. And when San Francisco at the time, where there was Caleb Johnson and Jacob Parrish, cornerback from Kansas State, who I am in love with, and I am so jealous the Buccaneers got him, I believe. We have Dylan Fairchild from Georgia, a guard, on the board. You have Charles Grant, a tackle from William and Mary, who I had going to San Francisco at pick 75 in my last mock draft. I'm sitting there like, okay, you got Collins, didn't get Darius Alexander. Okay, you get this guy, get that guy. These are great picks here. These are good value picks. And when you pick a linebacker in a bad class, it makes your head kind of scratch, right? The consensus boards didn't like this pick. I believe the number of the gap between where he was supposed to go and where he went was 95. That was the spot difference. So almost 100 spot differences. So about round 5, late round 6. This was a perplexing, polarizing, like, this is the reach of the draft, and this is where your faith gets tested, faithful, because do you blindly believe Robert Saleh, who has gotten you Fred Warner, who has been a big key piece in getting you Dre Greenlaw, who is getting you Aziz Al-Shire, or at least involved in that discussion, or in the traits he passed down and the growth he had with the Mykel Ryans, like all of that comes into play here. And I think, from the first instinctual reaction was like, what are we doing? Because the draft boards, the mock draft, the consensus all tells you this is a reach. This is a massive reach. And I think it is a reach. I think San Francisco had a massive, massive, massive reach at pick 75 with Nick Martin. And it's funny because we have mocked and talked about Nick Martin a lot on the show in round 7, in round 6, and talked about why he fits the system and why he'd be a good player for them. And I was never one that believed that linebacker was a massive need for them. I said, yeah, get Jeffrey Bassa. I even mocked Chris Paul Jr. at pick 100 and said, look, he's one of the better guys out there. He's really good in coverage, great tackler, a 7.6 missed tackle rate. And I was like, that's the pick here. If you want a linebacker early on day 2 or early on day 3, Chris Paul's the guy for you. He fits the system great. They had him in for a top 30 visit, and that's where I thought, okay, that's going to be the guy here at pick 75 or pick 100 on day 2, and no. And I want to be as fair as humanly possible to Nick Martin because I like Nick Martin a lot. But what's like linebacker and positional value and who's on the board, it makes you question, like, somebody in that room, whether it was Robert Saleh or Chris Kosarek for whatever reason, or Kyle Shanahan or whatever assistant coach or scout it was that got on their soapbox and said, guys, we have to draft Nickolas Martin. Somebody in that room had to love him because they took him over Jeffrey Bassa, Chris Paul, Danny Stutzman, Sean Dolak, a lot of guys that, although I would not have them over Nickolas Martin outside of Paul and Bassa, and maybe even Dolak, like Demetrius Knight was off the board. So, like, I don't know if they felt pressure. Like, a linebacker didn't even go after of Nickolas Martin. So, again, positional value comes into play, and they picked a nickel back at pick 100, where in my mind, I'm like, could you have got Nickolas Martin at pick 100? Or pick 113 or pick 123 or pick 140, 160. Like, I think there's a real sense of this may have been their third down running back this year. This is Robert Saleh's version of that. And, a lot of people pushed back when I said that because, who are you to think you know more than Robert Saleh? I'm not saying I know more. I'm not saying I am this amazing scout and I know talent and whatever. Did I predict some picks last year? Yeah, pat myself on the back. Good job, me. Did I predict Mykel Williams? Yeah, that was pretty obvious, though. And, you can talk about certain players. I mean, heck, I even talked about Nickolas Martin on the show 3 or 4 times saying he could be an option for them because I do like him a lot, but it's where you're picked. Like right now, Shedeur Sanders is a heck of a value in day 3 in round 4 or 5. And there's more reaches here or there. Like Jalen Milroe went to, what was it, Seattle or Dallas, whatever it was. The Browns take Dylan Gabriel, who I like a lot, but I mean, what are we doing now, folks? But Nickolas Martin in particular, there has to be a balance of, we can agree it was a reach. We can agree that he likely was not going to be, or was going to be on the board with their next few picks or so. And look, maybe we're wrong, because last year, round 1, albeit I loved Ricky Pearsall, I was for that pick. We could, at the time, the consensus was, what a reach. Really, Ricky Pearsall here over Roger Rosengarten, over Xavier Worthy, over other players, Lad McConkey. And you can debate if that was still right or wrong in year 2, but the consensus was that was a reach. But then you look back, Xavier Legette goes, Xavier Worthy goes, Lad McConkey goes, and y'all say, okay, a run on receiver was coming that we couldn't tell as fans. And once they took Pearsall, you saw it happen and said, oh, he was going to go soon, right? And that's the difference here, because we have the foresight of, okay, well, Nickolas Martin, at 75, we didn't see Pearsall and the receiver run coming until the next day, because that was a first round pick and day 2 happened. Then you saw it happen in front of your own eyes and transpire on day 2 in round 2. Whereas we saw it live that the very next 20 picks, there wasn't a linebacker taken once. And so I do want to classify this as a reach. I think this is their third down or third round running back. However, that doesn't mean it's a bad pick. And that's the big difference here, because a lot of people will say, you think it's a reach, that means you think it's a bad pick. That means you think this is a bad player. And I don't think that whatsoever. I think Nickolas Martin can play at the NFL level. I think Nickolas Martin, in fact, fits San Francisco's scheme extremely well. Hence why we talked about him a ton of times on the podcast leading up to this weekend's NFL draft. I'm not shocked he's going to be a San Francisco 49er. I'm just shocked it happened at pick 75. But Nickolas Martin in particular here, 6 foot, 220 pounds, had a season cut short this past year at Oklahoma State. I think he tore his MCL, played about 5 or 7 games this past season, had 49 tackles, 25 defensive stops, 9 pressures, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass deflection. 2024, his film, his tape does not do the prospect or the player of Nickolas Martin justice, because I think had he been healthy, and I think maybe had he come out last year, we're talking about a really good player that you could justify going as early as round 3, maybe not pick 75, but certainly in round 3. He had 60 defensive run stops. That is, again, plays for negative or 0 yards, and 30 pressures and 6 sacks. There's clear traits you love from a player like Nickolas Martin. He has the pass rushing upside to be a blitzer. I think one thing with Nickolas Martin, and we'll get more into it in a second here, is that if Saleh wants to bring a blitz, if they want to utilize him as that third linebacker next to Winters and Fred Warner and have him, he's built more like a safety. He's 6 foot 220. He has the mobility. He has, unlike a lot of guys in this draft, he's a high-end athlete at linebacker, which really fits San Francisco. He can take you sideline to sideline. Other guys can't do that in this year's class. So again, there's so much to like from him. It's easy to buy into him as an athlete. He plays fast. He runs downhill with power. He plays electrifying. A lot of things San Francisco really wants. He's a high effort player. He has high IQ in my notes here. And it's funny because I believe in his call with John Lynch, or maybe in his press conference after he got picked, he talked about, I'm going to give everything I have. I'm fully healthy. They are going to get literally everything out of me every single snap. I will not take snaps off. I'm going to be ready to go on day one. I want to be a part of this team. I can't wait to get out there. And the motor he has is just really impressive. And I have here, he's a good tackler, but at times the motor is too high and he'll overrun plays, but the work ethic is there. The arm length is 31 inches, I believe, but sometimes there's some alligator arming stuff that may not have him fill passing lanes, which even then you'd rather have 32-inch arms. It's not ideal length, but it is good enough to fill passing lanes, but isn't perfect. But at times he'll overrun some plays and he plays too fast, and you're saying, Nickolas Martin, please calm down. The energy is great. You have a spark about you, but I have here, despite the detractions he may have, again, playing too fast at times, overrunning plays, shorter arms for linebacker, but not terrible arms, mind you. He will give you 110% every single snap. Excellent work ethic. He's all in. He's bought in. Former Oklahoma State team captain. If I'm not selling you on the idea of the player, I may not be able to sell myself at where he was picked, or maybe not you as well, but I think at least as a player, because it doesn't matter where you're picked when your career's over with. You may say, oh, he was a reach, he was a bust, but if you're a good player, it doesn't matter, right? The reason why Trey Lance is a bust is because of what San Francisco utilized to go up and get him. But had Trey Lance been picked in round 4 or 5, who freaking cares, right? Had Cam Latu, which he should have been, picked in round 7 or UDFA, nobody would have cared, right? And so that's the difference here. There's a lot of pressure on Nickolas Martin, and it's funny because, this team, I wasn't sure exactly how much they valued the linebacker position when the name wasn't Dre Greenlaw or Fred Warner attached to it, because they tried to get Dre Greenlaw back, and I wasn't sure how highly they realized or wanted to bring in a new player. You have D. Winters, who I think is a phenomenal coverage player. Nickolas Martin is not a great coverage player, but he has the athletic traits, the speed to be that for you at the NFL level. You go to his PFF page as a coverage player, only a 61.2 grade this past year, and he averages a 61, a 63, a 61 again. So I know the PFF grades are a little jaded. They're not exactly a 1-for-1. It's not the only tool you should use. I do think that those grades don't indicate exactly how good you are. They only usually get you when you're targeted. So there is some nuances to the grading system there at PFF. And it's, again, really easy to buy into the electrifying play he has. And I think that with Upton Stout, who they picked at pick 100, and Nickolas Martin, when you play feisty, angry, fast, quick, and can get takeaways, and in Nickolas Martin's case in particular, he's a guy that has 7 career college sacks. In 2023, he had 6 of them. The past couple of years, an 84.4 and a 73.4 pass rushing grade. So there is some blitzing that can be done. He's a pretty good run defender, a 75.5 run defense grade, a 59.9, so a 60 defense grade, and a 63.2. So there's upside there. He had over 102 tackles in 2023, and a tackle missed rate around 12 or 13, so not too bad. There's a lot to like from Nickolas Martin, a lot that the tape will tell you, a lot stats can tell you. He's a guy who had 2 picks a couple of years ago. And I think that, he was in the slot for a couple of snaps, 15 in 2023, 18 this past year. They have that flexibility with him to play him in the slot. And I think he can keep up with, some of the wide receivers or tight ends at the NFL level. But when you take somebody, which is now, funny enough, it's only, I believe, 5 picks away from where you took Fred Warner at pick 70 in 2018. So this is their second highest drafted linebacker in this regime's history. And that may give you confidence. That can also make you a little scared and say, well, that's a lot of pressure. Is Nickolas Martin going to be a player to step in on day one? Because as a third round pick at a place where you like D Winters, although he was hurt a lot last year, fought through some stuff, um, what Martin brings to the table does have starter traits. There's potential there, 100%. But there's also some things you say that, shorter arm length, he isn't great in coverage, where's your spot? And I think the Niners, it's not going to be a 1-for-1. It's not going to be you come in day one and you earn a job and it's your job. But as a third round pick, that's what the expectation should be. And that's my biggest kind of qualm, if you will, with the pick is it's not the player. It's where the player was picked, because there was starting caliber players, a starting caliber nickelback picked right after this, offensive linemen or running backs where, they can get DJ Giddens on day 3, Devin Neal on day 3, Bashal Tootin on, there's plenty of running backs out there. So running back isn't a sticking point, but you can improve the offensive line. You can improve the secondary. You can get a receiver. Like, I think there was better players on the board, and there is no proof that Nickolas Martin was going to be off the board anytime soon. Now, look, we're never going to know. Maybe they had an idea and said, look, let's get it done here and just move on. I like the player a lot. I think it's a good job getting him in the building. I wouldn't have minded him on the team. In fact, I'm happy he's here. I just think it's a little too rich. I think there's a reason why the consensus, whether it is Mel Kiper or Joe Blow on the internet, myself, Dane Brugler with the Beast, when you are going against all of those people that put in a ton of work, many of them very similar work to what NFL teams do, this is Dane Brugler's only job. Cover the NFL and scout college players and compile a scouting report. And look, maybe your scouts and San Francisco scouts see something in him, Johnny Holland, I'm sure, that maybe we don't. Maybe I don't. Maybe Dane Brugler doesn't. Maybe other teams didn't. And they said, you know what, let's not risk it here on day 3. Get in now, and we'll move on. But when you decide to go against the grain, you better be right. And that's what this is for me. If you want to reach. You better be right. And San Francisco, unfortunately, you can argue they had a reach for Fred Warner, and maybe you're right, but I don't know. I don't like the idea of, well, you reach that one time so you can do it again and get the exact same result. That's not how life works. It's not how the NFL works. This team has reached a ton, taken a lot of big swings, and you can argue that had they hit on a lot of their third-round picks and not taking big swings on Trey Lance, a lot of the outcomes of their playoff games in the Super Bowl could be different, or some of the needs they have now wouldn't be needs. So Nickolas Martin, I'm happy you're in San Francisco, but from San Francisco's perspective, whoever loved him, you better be right, because it's decisions like this that, although aren't going to lose Kyle or John or Robert, Saleh his job, or Kosaric their job, or Holland his job, whatever Midwest Oklahoma State scout that vouched for this, if he's not good, you're putting this in the another swing and a miss in the third round. But if he's great, dude, welcome to San Francisco, baby. Let's go. All gas, no brakes. Let's get it done. But I think it was a reach. I am eagerly anticipating, hoping to see him in training camp and OTAs in person this year. I think San Francisco, they are rather insulated on the linebacker room. You had D Winters, Tatum Bethune, Curtis Robinson. I keep forgetting the guy they signed from Tennessee as a special teamer, but then you have now Nickolas Martin, where he's probably going to be the first guy off the bench, second guy off the bench in year one, which is a third round pick. This feels like a stash pick. This feels like this is their one reach. He sits for a year, then becomes a starter, and maybe that's the case. D. Winter's contract is almost up in a couple years, so maybe there's something there, and maybe they believe Nickolas Martin can be, Dre Greenlaw 2.0. Like, is this their Dre Greenlaw at home? Kind of stuff. Time will obviously tell, and I hope it works out. I think he can be a really good player. It's just draft pick positional value. This really screams like a reach. But I don't know. He plays fast, plays quick. He screams energy, electric play, and can be a good pass rusher, a good blitzer. I think if Saleh wants to bring back the stunts and utilize, there is a path for Nickolas Martin to get on the field in year one, and that is his speed. And the one thing about this year's draft picks, mainly Nickolas Martin and Upton Stout, is that the fastest way into getting on the football field is, one, high effort, two, getting the football back. And I think both those players, and also in San Francisco's case, good run defense, right? No block, no rock is kind of the offensive way of going about things. On defense, it's if you don't tackle and aren't a good run defender, you're not going to play. And I think both these guys can be that for San Francisco. Maybe not in year one, but I think in year two, I think in year three, there is a really good chance Nickolas Martin can be something for you. And look, it's tough to sit back here on, the day they're drafted and kind of poo-poo their pick, because none of these guys are finished products. None of these guys are, one guy picked in round 2 could suck. And we all go, yeah, it makes sense. One guy picked in round 5 could be awesome. San Francisco has a pretty good track record of making good 5th round picks. So I don't want to sit here, and be like, no, it's not a great pick. Nickolas Martin is a phenomenal tackler, team captain. He is a grounded player. He was called one of the most caring guys on the team ever. He gets high volume tackles. He was number 2 in the entire FBS in tackles with 83 solo tackles. He'll chase down players over the middle, high end speed. He's good against the run. He's twitchy. Like, there's so much to like from him. And I think he can really, really, really change football games for you. But shorter arms, the core strength isn't great. Sometimes he'll overrun plays, he'll dip blockers. Like, there are things that you just say, their hands aren't great. Like, there's a lot of things he has to learn here. And when you talk about a team, like, these are picks that rebuilding teams make. And I think that's how I view this. It's kind of a luxury where you can make this pick and you hope in year 1, year 2, year 3, he becomes something. But, immediately when, in round 3, you need defensive line help, get a, Vernon Broughton, Jamari Caldwell, an edge rusher. Like, there were some players on the board here where I was like, what are we doing? And if it works out, great. But this is one of those, unlike Mykel Williams, unlike Alfred Collins, I kind of got to see it to believe it. He had an injury last year, which derailed his season and kind of sank his draft stock. But even then, like, I don't know. This is one of the few picks in my time covering this team, at least draft wise, where I've been like, you're going to have to prove to me you were worth it there. And I think Martin can, but the odds are not really in the favor of him, although he's going into a great place. Said he values and always watches Fred Warner and Ray Lewis's game. So, like, there's so many things to like from Nickolas Martin as a person, as a player, but there also is some critical drawbacks I think could kind of cost him some time. But this is a luxury pick. This is kind of a stash pick for a year. He'll probably be on special teams for a season. But I also wouldn't be shocked if he is like the 4th linebacker on this team. And we're like, the traits are there, the speed's there, but can you translate that into being, one of the best linebackers in football? you have to be that now. And I'm, not top 5, but you have to be a, competitive and starting caliber player as a third round linebacker. You have to be that. You were what, the 4th linebacker off the board? Campbell, Swishinger, Knight, and then him. Like, you have to be a starting caliber player, knowing you were picked just 5 away from Fred Warner. So expectations are high, and I hope you can meet them. With that, excuse me. Oh my goodness, I just burped. What the heck was that? Been a long night. Been covering the draft since 6 p.m. And following it, obviously, since 8 a.m. So been a long day for me. It is currently 12:45 in the morning. The sacrifices I make for you. The sacrifices I make. But that said, you can go ahead and get yourself a can of goat fuel by using our link in the description below. It is, bar none, the best energy drink on the market, made and sponsored by one of the greatest athletes ever. It's, to me, Barry Bonds, Willie Mays, and Jerry Rice. Those are the dogs. Joe Montana's in there too. Stephen Curry's, I'm sure, in there somewhere. But MJ, but it's Jerry. It's Jerry. It's the GOAT. And he's going to get you a can of goat fuel by using that link down below and utilizing our 10% off link in the description. So go ahead and get yourself a case of goat fuel. Watch day 3 of the draft with drinking that big case of goat fuel next to you. And maybe it gets you pumped to go utilize that promo code at SeatGeek.com while you watch San Francisco make 7 more picks tomorrow on day 3. And that brings us to pick 100 in round 3. The San Francisco 49ers, with a big help from Jed York, who was tweeting out the last couple of days, kind of hinting towards certain players. This one was kind of a nickel for your thoughts hashtag. And we all said, Kobe Bryant? Cornerback? Okay, nickel for your thoughts. Who's this going to be? In San Francisco, I don't want to say shocked anybody, but they took a player that they had a lot of interest in. We didn't muck into San Francisco. I think there was better value there, but with the way the board had fallen, a lot of cornerbacks were going off the board. I think San Francisco thought, okay, Parrish is gone, no Williams is gone, Darian Porter was gone. Let's get, in their eyes, I believe they thought, the last good nickelback in this year's draft. And they went up and they got Upton Stout, cornerback from Western Kentucky. There's a lot to like. In fact, I think I like the value of Upton Stout a lot more than Nickolas Martin, albeit there are some similarities there. High effort, feisty player who wants to get his hands dirty, a 3-year starter. He can play outside, but he projects to be a nickelback at the NFL level. You saw him take that next step moving inside in his senior season. I think he's a really good player. He has some swagger. He likes to play against the run. He's a short guy. He's 5'8", 181 pounds, 30-inch arms. So, there is some discrepancy. Yes, like the size could certainly be a problem for him. The weight can be a problem for him, but he's really quick. A 19.47 miles an hour was one of the fastest among defensive backs at the combine during the gauntlet drill. He has no problem keeping up with faster and quick slot receivers. So think of your favorite guy. Upton Stout can hang with him, at least when it comes to speed. He has really quick hips. He's a fluid mover. He's controlled of his footwork. I think there is a lot to like from him. He's a very competitive player. Again, he's feisty. He's played on special teams before. He also, funny enough, had 21 bench press reps at the combine for a player who's 5'8", 180 pounds. So he's certainly a fighter. He's a physical player that I think can unlock the hips really fast and make a lot of good plays for you. There are some weaknesses, though. Again, shorter body, shorter frame. That's going to knock you down a peg for a lot of teams. I don't think San Francisco truly views his size as a problem. I mean, Lenore has blossomed into one of the best, if not the most underrated cornerback in football. And Upton Stout gives you versatility. You can play him on the inside. Lenore can play the inside. Green can play the inside. Now you have Trey Brown. Like, there is a lot to like from him. He's a pesky player. He does kind of have that Nat mentality, where we talked a lot about this with Kobe Bryant and Jacob Parrish, where they want to annoy players. Jacob Parrish being a more comparable player to Upton Stout, where he's a smaller guy. And that's going to knock him down a peg for certain teams, but they're pesky, they're feisty, they are annoying to be in coverage against. And I think Upton Stout can be that for you. There are times he'll get handsy. There's times where, he may miss a step and he'll get flagged for holding. And sometimes, there are instances where he's not picking the ball off. He has a hard time finding the ball sometimes, mainly in his 2024 tape. He's a smaller player, so he's going to get stuck on blocks, especially against bigger slot receivers. And there was a shoulder injury 2 years ago. So a lot of good, a lot of question marks. But overall, I think Upton Stout can be eventually, I think, a impactful player for San Francisco. I like this pick more than Nickolas Martin because a lot of people will complain, you took a cornerback when there were so many on the board. It's not about that. Nickelbacks, you can't find those guys. It's really hard to have a 6'3", 6 foot, 6'1" nickelback. If you have guys that can play that position, it seems like San Francisco viewed Upton Stout as the best nickelback remaining on the board for them and didn't want to wait. And at that point, I can buy into that. That's the difference here in Nickolas Martin. There's plenty of linebackers out there. And some, in many cases, may be better than Nickolas Martin. But Upton Stout, at his positional value, if he's the best and last nickelback you view as draftable, and you're sitting there like, hey, the team behind us wants him or likes him or needs or has a need there, you take him. So sometimes the draft comes to you. Sometimes you have to go to the draft and be aggressive. So I think San Francisco got aggressive on and in round 3 at pick 75 and pick 100. But Upton Stout, going to be a hard name to say over and over again for myself. Really good run defender. We talked about for San Francisco, got to be feisty, got to play angry, got to play with the high motor, but you got to be a good run defender. Nickolas Martin lacks a little bit in that field. There's been some inconsistencies over his career, but in 2024 and in 2023 and in 2021 and 2020, Upton Stout was a tremendous run defender and has gotten a lot better over his time the last 2 years, an 84.3 and a 90.9 run defense grade per PFF. He also gives you some blitzing ability, a 77.4 PFF grade and a 73.2 pass rushing grade. 2 sacks over the last few seasons, 18 total pressures the last couple seasons, relatively sure tackler, around 8% missed tackle rate. And I think one of the more impressive things about him is when you look back at his tape, the last 3 seasons, this year was different, played more inside, but the last 3 seasons, a 61.5, a 66.3, and a 96 passer rating allowed. So you are seeing a player that can lock down some people. He can play in the box. He has some free safety snaps. He can play outside. He can play slots. So there is more versatility for you. And it's funny because I was asked this question, do you think Upton Stout starts in year 1? And my response was not initially. No. I think San Francisco wants to walk into this year with Trey Brown as their starting cornerback 3. Maybe Renardo Green goes and plays nickel for a few games, and Lenore plays outside. And then eventually, like last year with Isaac Yiadom, who played fine enough, I guess, but Green usurped him, took a spot as a starter. I think the hope is as a 3rd round cornerback that by week 6, week 7, you begin to have the conversation of, hey, can we push Lenore? Can we push Green outside or keep those guys outside and put Stout in and give us more versatility? I think it's a serious conversation to have. It's funny because on the phone call with Kyle Shanahan, the only thing Upton Stout could say was, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it. And I think that kind of shows you his mentality of, I want to go hit somebody right now. And you heard that with Mykel Williams saying he couldn't wait to practice. San Francisco, with the first 4 picks, clear as day, had an agenda, had certain types they liked, which may not be who you or I liked at certain places. Obviously, Nickolas Martin being a 20-minute segment in this show, and where he was picked being a controversial thing for San Francisco. Even people on Twitter, and my father was like, we always do this every single year. So there is some controversy there, but Upton Stout to me, I think could be a good play for them. And San Francisco, funny enough, one of the few positions I do not doubt them is cornerback. They have a type, and some guys aren't built that way. Ambry Thomas to me was one of the few where you said the size, the length, like this screams Niners, but the mentality wasn't there. And there was some regime, some coaching changes and things kind of fell apart for him. But like Samuel Womack also, and I think Samuel Womack can still play and really should still be here in San Francisco. But I think, Upton Stout, I think, is kind of their second chance at that Samuel Womack type player. Smaller player, can play inside, it can play outside. Where Womack had his issues, I think Upton Stout, the mentality is so fierce, so aggressive of like, just give me this rabid Wolverine who's a smaller guy, a thinner dude, but wants to go out there and tackle, get his hands dirty, and just try his hardest. You try hard, you're going to get rewarded at the NFL level, whether it is for a 10-year career on special teams or getting a starting job on some team. Teams reward that. Teams see that. If you can push the guy next to you to be better. And I think a lot of the conversation we had in round 7 with some guys like Mac McWilliamson. At the time, Nickolas Martin, funny enough, was like, these guys are going to come in and they're going to push guys in front of them, guys who come in who are veterans or 3-year pros, 2-year pros. They think their jobs are safe. They're going to want to beat those guys out and say, look, I'm going to push you as hard as I can and try to take your job away. I think Stout and Martin are 2 players that want to walk into San Francisco, chips on their shoulder, albeit 3rd-round picks. They want to walk in. They want to bench Trey Brown. They want to bench D. Winters. They want to bench Curtis Robinson in the nicest and kindest way possible. They want to take your job. So I think it's a polarizing day 2 for San Francisco, a very polarizing round 3. And I think San Francisco is still in a good place. I would give their draft a B. Had it just been Mykel Williams and Alfred Collins, we're talking an A grade. But you add in a reach for Nickolas Martin, at least when it comes to a draft positional value ranking perspective. And Upton Stout, it drags it down a little bit, but there can be some growth there. But day 3 is a big day for San Francisco. If there is one position they have to address, many may say the offensive line. Marcus Bowe is there. Logan Brown, Miles Frazier, Chase Lund. There's some players there you like and you may take. Jackson Slater is still there from Sacramento State. This team needs to find a pass rushing defensive tackle. You have your run defenders, Evan Anderson, Jordan Elliott, Alfred Collins. You only have Kalia Davis. You got to find your pass rushing defensive tackle. Joshua Farmer, Aeneas Peebles. There's some more down there, but those are kind of the guys. So I'm hoping San Francisco early on day 3 finds one of those guys. Maybe you want to go David Walker, an edge rusher. Wouldn't hate that either. Pair it to and kind of contrast the run stuff for Mykel Williams to a pass rushing specialist in David Walker. So it's a big day 3. This is where San Francisco makes their money, but we just happen to have a polarizing day 2 in between it. But for all I know, for some reason, Kyle Shanahan says, let's take Shedeur Sanders. You just never know what can happen. The NFL is clearly sending a message to him and the NIL with how they're doing stuff in college, but that's neither here nor there. But what did you think of San Francisco's day 2? Did you like Alfred Collins? Did you agree with me and think Nickolas Martin was a reach? Did you like Upton Stout? Do you think that these guys can be contributors on day one, or do you believe some of these guys are stash picks for a year and hope they can replace somebody else in the near future? Tell me down below what you thought of day two for San Francisco. What grade did you give it so far? I give them a strong B with a chance to raise it higher and higher in what has been their money day in previous years. But don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X, or Twitter, 49ers.access is the Instagram. Use that promo code 49ersaccess at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase, and get yourself a case of goat fuel down below in the description and save yourself 10% off your case. Day two in the books. Day three is tomorrow. When you're watching this, listening to it, it is today. Stay tuned for day three coverage right back here on the channel. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Leave that 5-star audio podcast review. And as always, my name is Sterling Bennett. And until next time, stay faithful.